uh, these pot bars or whatever, these clinics, if the feds let them.
Lester, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, anyway, but my point is, and it's all well and good that all these states are going out and ratifying it and saying that it's good we'll have medical marijuana here, or they're going to open it up for recreational use. However they want to do that, that's all well and good. But the problem is that since it's federally illegal, if you have a place that sells pot in Denver, Colorado, and by state law it's legal to do that, the problem with that is your place of business, you can't deposit money into a bank. They can't accept your funds. You can't accept credit cards because credit cards can't be used for an illegal enterprise either. So until the feds recognize this, I think we're just spinning our wheels. Now, go ahead.
And you are absolutely right, Lester, and in lies the problem, and you open the door for me. Go to conventionofstates.com. It is time that we rein in these federal government bastards for running all over our liberties. Article 5 of the United States Constitution gives the states the authority to amend the Constitution, to term limit these bastards, to rein in their bureaucracies. Read Article 5 and go and just right now go on your computer, go to conventionofstates.com.
Yeah, well, I can't right now. I can't do that right now.
Okay, but write it down, conventionofstates.com. You are absolutely right, because this, just like gay marriage, just like legalizing pot, just like religious issues, these are state issues. And the federal government has run roughshod over us. My phone's going off the hook. Have run roughshod over us for too long. And you know what, Lester? I don't know if you're a Democrat. I don't know if you're a Republican. I don't know if the listeners are libertarian or none of the above. But we are all people. And to be honest with you right now, I don't line up with any party. But the states have enormous power, and the states created the federal government, and it's time that we rein them in. I don't care about the president. I don't care about whoever the next president is, or any of these things. What we need to do is rein in this Congress and this Senate and this Supreme Court that is ruling roughshod over us, so the authority goes back to the states, so we're not locking up people. I know the president wants to act like he's this champion for marijuana rights and blah, 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 but that is just not the case. But I'm not...
Wait a minute.
Chris, stop talking. Okay, but conventionofstates.com.
Okay, but let me interject something in here. I think Barack Obama is a terrible president. That's my feeling. But he has to get some credit somewhere because of this. He has told people that are running on his watch, we're going to let the states sort out their own marijuana laws for right now. And so while he's running the show, everybody's going to get a chance to sell their weed in whatever state that it's legal to do so in. I promise, when a Republican comes on as president of the United States, this is just my thought. I was a Republican up until George Bush. When George Bush won the election and became president of the United States, I turned in my fucking voter card. I still vote. But I am not going to ever be recognized as a fucking Republican. Not when I have the likes of George Bush dictating the policy of the party.
George W. Bush?
Yeah.
The second worst president of all time.
Well, I'm not so sure that he's any worse. I mean, that Obama's worse than him. I'm really not sure.
They're cut from the same ilk.
Well, yeah, to an extent. I mean, George Bush lied to the American people, talked about weapons of mass destruction, got us in there, and decided to sacrifice all of these young men and young women's lives.
And for what? And
for the sake of the economy, and hopefully to gain control of some oil. I personally could give a shit about the civil or the rights of the people in Iraq. I could give a fuck because they don't want us, they don't like us, they don't even want us there. But that's my thought. I'm not saying that I hold all the cards on that. But here's the reason that the feds it'll always be illegal federally in the United States is because Big Pharmaceutical runs that show. They donate all the money. It's just like, think about cigarettes. Cigarettes. It's legal to sell cigarettes, and every year 450,000 people die. Almost 500,000 people die in the United States every year because it's legal to sell something that's as deadly as cigarettes, yet they've got a problem with people smoking some pot. Makes not 1 ounce of, if you look, and Big Pharmaceuticals, how many people die every year, not through suicide, but how many people die every year due to the accidental overdose of their medications? Somewhere between 35 and 40,000 people a year die from the overdose of their pain pills or whatever it is that they take. So I went online before I did my show supporting all of this marijuana shit. So I went online. I tried to find out how many people have died because of an overdose of THC. I couldn't find fucking one. Not one. Not one person has died as a result of an overdose of THC. So way back in the late 50s, early 60s, when they put out that movie Reefer Madness, when they were trying to tell you that pot was a gateway drug to this and that and whatever, it's only look, anything can be a gateway to anything, in my opinion. But Reefer Madness was out there. They were trying to tell you that it was going to kill you, but they had no facts. So they hired a scientist. The American government did. They hired a scientist to experiment with marijuana cigarettes, if you will, but the effects of THC, and they were trying to produce a situation to where it actually killed a chimpanzee. So they put on this fucking Red Baron type mask. They channeled in the smoke over a 24-hour period equal to, I don't know how big the joints would be, but equal to like 8 joints, 8 marijuana cigarettes. Well, nothing happened. So they increased that smoke, and they increased it up to like 20 joints. Nothing happened. They even increased it to 100 joints in 24 hours. Nothing happened. Finally, they got their result. They channeled in the smoke over 24 hours of 800 joints, and the monkey died. But he didn't die as a result of a THC overdose. He died because he asphyxiated. There wasn't enough oxygen in this deal, and he suffocated. But they put out that this monkey died as a result of the effects and on him of marijuana. Are you fucking kidding me? This is how desperate the government has been since the early 60s to go after this stuff, try to make it illegal. We've got a lot of stuff in the United States that depends on people going to jail. You've got the prison industry. You've got tons of people that work as prison guards. You've got judges that without all of these marijuana cases, you don't need so many judges. You've got law enforcement people, and we don't need that many law enforcement people if we start legalizing marijuana. So we've got a whole industry out there that's dependent on people going to jail. And given the fact that there's so many people in jail with regard to marijuana, this is just, it'll never, in my opinion, it'll never happen on a federal level. I didn't mean to get on a soapbox, but
you're right. No, you're absolutely right, Lester. And I have changed my opinion of this back and forth because I smoked a lot of pot for a long time. But then I really got into alcohol, and then I realized that smoking marijuana occasionally can alleviate those cravings for alcohol. And then when I joined my church's prison ministry and realized how many of those people are in there for nonviolent marijuana offenses, and how people are like slammed against the back of police cars and have their cars impounded and are cuffed and have these criminal records just for having a little bit of weed, I was appalled. And here you hit it right on the nose, Lester. And I thank Debbie very much for letting me talk about this a lot. But is Congress? Try calling your congressman or your senator. See if they give a shit what you think. They don't. That's right. You won't even be able to talk to them. But your state representative, your state senator, they do care because they're your neighbor. Now, let me just tell you something. Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution says that 2/3 of the states can amend the United States Constitution. Number one, we want to term limit members of Congress. We need to get those SOBs out of there. Number two, we need to term limit Supreme Court justices. Number three, we need to have restrictions on taxing and spending. Number four, we need to have restrictions on the bureaucracy. And through these amendments, and just let me tell you something, this isn't just academia. Florida, my state of Florida, has passed an Article 5 application. So has Georgia, so has Alaska, so has North Dakota, and so has Arizona, and Oklahoma's on the verge, and so are about 21 other states. We're expecting to have the Convention of States this year. Do not expect to hear about it on the news because they'll just be talking about marijuana, gay marriage, Ferguson. Marijuana, gay marriage, Ferguson. President Obama ate a hot dog today. President Obama went to a basketball game. President Obama went surfing in Hawaii. President Obama ate an ice cream cone. All right, just don't even listen. Fox News, too. Fox News pisses me off more than any of them, actually. But the Convention of States will probably happen this year. So, Lester, everybody else listening, please go to conventionofstates.com and sign up to volunteer and see what we're doing. I'm the Convention of States District Captain for Volusia County, Florida. In just about an hour and a half, I'll be on News Daytona Beach, WNDB, talking about it, trying to recruit more people. But but we need to return the power to the states, and that will allow states to decide on things like, do we want to throw people? Oh, hey, Debbie. Isn't she beautiful?
I was nodding off. I'm joking.
Have you?
I'm joking.
Have you signed up at conventionofstates.com?
Yes, I've signed up at Conventions of States.
Conventionofstates.com. All right.
Yes,
Pick up the Liberty Amendments by Mark Levin. This is not a partisan thing. This is not a Republican thing. This is not a Democrat thing. This is not a Tea Party thing. This is exactly what we're all talking about, and I'm so glad to be talking about conventionofstates.com.
Well, cool. But listen, I kind of got off subject there when I went on with all the other stuff. But I asked you about...
No, you're right. You're right on, Lester.
It was about marijuana, because if you think about what marijuana can do... See, I don't smoke pot, and I don't smoke pot. I used to... When I was in college, I was like a fucking chimney. I smoked dope every day. And then I didn't. You know what I mean? I just quit. I didn't want the trouble that might come with it and all of that sort of stuff. I don't smoke marijuana because I live in Texas. And Texas has some really fucked up laws. So I don't deal with, I don't do that. But I can tell you this, the day that Texas makes it legal And if we find out that the feds are not going to bother anybody, I'll twist up and I'll have a smoke out that day. I can promise you that. Because here's my thought about this. If you look at the studies done at Harvard Medical School and other big research centers, and I'm not talking about the activist site that all about twisting the doobie up and getting high, dude. I'm not talking about that. I could give a fuck about that. But my point is they have research indicates that people with post-traumatic stress disorder, to the tune of 80%, they can stop a lot of the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder. And this is something that's near and dear to my heart. You can stop up to 80%, or they can stop up to 80% of the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder on the people that suffer from that. You can start curbing down the nightmares. You can start curbing down a lot of the antisocial behavior. You can start curbing down the headaches, everything. Then it goes even further. Why in the fuck would you ever say it's illegal to have a drug that can take Alzheimer's, old people that have Alzheimer's? That's a hideous disease. I watched an old man that I respected a ton just wither away to nothing, and he was dead within 5 years. But it's illegal for him to have partaken.
It's very sad. Alzheimer's is very sad to watch.
Horrible. But now research indicates to us that if somebody is treated with some of the cannabinoids out of marijuana, whether he smokes it or they separate it out and don't get them high, whatever, it doesn't matter. My point is 65 to 70%, it can just stop Alzheimer's in its tracks. Mm-hmm. See, the pharmaceutical companies would rather be able to push their pills and push their cocktails on these people, never really doing anything for them, just causing them to, well, this is supposed to be good for you, but they still progress up and die within 5 years.
Yeah, and these pharmaceutical companies, I mean, their drugs F you up more than anything. I mean, I have been, Adderall, narcotics, these drugs are just, they're insidious. The only decent drugs in minimal doses that have helped me with my bipolar disorder is Lexapro, an antidepressant. However, you are absolutely right. For multiple sclerosis,
yep.
For depression,
yep.
For cancer,
absolutely,
for depression, period. And another thing that marijuana is good for is alcoholism. And you're missing something, Lester, because you're talking about the pharmaceutical industry, but that's just one. There's also the alcohol industry.
I agree.
And the alcohol industry does not want marijuana legalized.
No.
That would cut into their profits so much. And let me tell you,
also help you to stop smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, and as somebody who struggles with alcohol, I have recently, I'll admit it, used marijuana in order to alleviate my cravings for alcohol, and it works.
Well, and it may work. Also, one other thing that I didn't include.
I want to alleviate my craving for ice cream.
There you go. It might.
No. It will increase your craving for ice cream.
I know. I love ice cream.
It will not alleviate your craving for ice cream. That's the one thing marijuana will not do. It will not alleviate your craving for ice cream.
Think about this, though. If you suffer a major head injury, if you're treated with some of the cannabinoids out of marijuana, you are 80% less. And these facts, you can look them up. These facts are solid. You are 80% less likely to suffer permanent brain damage. What the fuck are people thinking? You know, I think a lot of people get caught. They're worried about the stigma of smoking pot. You know, but I got to tell you, if I had a grandmother and my grandmother was suffering from Alzheimer's or something like that, I got news for you. I'm going into Granny's house, twisting up a big old fatty, and we're going to set and toke on it. I mean, I mean that.
Where did that stigma come from?
Well,
it came from
the 60s, hippies and shit.
Like Reefer Madness and things like that.
Have y'all ever seen Reefer Madness?
And you know what? Yeah, I've seen it, and I'll bet you I don't know who put it out, but it is these special interests just follow the money trail. Someone was like, "Holy crap! You can grow this stuff that can alleviate all these problems that we are making all this freaking money on, and we've got to demonize it."
Yep.
And it makes me so sick that family men, people with families and women with children and all are having their children taken away and being thrown in jail just for smoking some weed. All right. I might not necessarily agree with being a total pothead and doing it just recreationally, but throwing a kid's parents in jail and repossessing their kids for it, that's and overcrowding prisons for smoking weed. I mean, what the hell? I mean, that's ridiculous. Give them a traffic ticket if anything. I mean, come on.
You wondered where people get the stigma. In 1974, Ronald Reagan indicated that marijuana led to homosexuality.
Ronald Reagan hated pot. For some reason, he hated it. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll just say one thing. I love Ronald Reagan on everything, but that man hated marijuana. For some reason, he hated it.
Well, look, Ronald Reagan was a lovable old man. And Ronald Reagan was a good president in the fact that if somebody fucked with us, Muammar Gaddafi. When Gaddafi threatened us, Ronald Reagan said, fuck it, we're going to go bomb his house. He didn't bomb the country. He went and leveled his fucking house. And then we didn't hear anything from Gaddafi. Nothing. He was done. He became an insignificant figure. But Ronald Reagan was a lovable old man, and he could get by with saying anything. Ronald Reagan's trickle-down economics was one of the reasons that we had to suffer economic fallout later on down the road. It did.
Wrong.
Okay.
Ronald Reagan's policies for economics and defense were incredible, and all the prosperity that we had in the 90s and even into the 2000s were based on Reagan's economic policies and his defense policies. Okay. Nobody fucked with us because everyone was just a little afraid that Reagan might just be crazy enough to push the button.
Anytime.
But for some reason, and I read the entire Reagan diaries. It's like this thick, but I read the entire thing, and I don't know why. I think it had something to do with him. His marriage to Jane Wyman, she was a pothead, and his experiences in Hollywood, something in his history made him extremely hateful towards marijuana. He hated marijuana to an extent that was almost illogical. And that was something he never explained exactly why. Nobody's right on everything. I mean, he was a great president, but for some reason, he had a real grudge against marijuana. And you know.
Well, I'll agree with you on his stance on militarily and stuff like that. But we had some great economic times during the early 80s. But the times okay.
Right. Well, I mean, I was born in 82, but I mean, didn't we have kind of a...
We were rich in the 80s. Everybody I knew drove a Porsche, a BMW,
In the early 80s?
In the early 80s. There was...
I stand corrected. You guys know better than I do on that.
And Reagan, he could... There is nothing Reagan could have done to stop the economic growth in the early 80s. So this trickle down economics, it doesn't work. It can't work. You know, it's like saying cutting the tax rate to the top 5% of the United States is, you know, the ultra wealthy is going to in some way increase the economy for the middle class and the lower. It's not. It's never.
But that's a myth. That's a myth. He didn't cut taxes just on the ultra wealthy. He cut taxes on everyone. That trickle down thing was a myth. That he cut taxes for everyone, and it took us out of that Carter malaise.
Okay.
And I wasn't alive back then, so I mean I know from reading history and reading the Reagan diaries and how we were in this horrible malaise back in the and interest rates were ridiculous in the late 70s and early 80s, and it wasn't until around 1984 when Reagan's tax cuts started making America was on the move again, and the real effects of Reagan's economic policies weren't fully realized until the late 80s and then into the 90s. And that's why we had and then when the internet came out, I mean, the 90s was a boom time. I mean, who cared about Lewinsky and the blue dress and stuff? I mean, America was on the move. It wasn't until 9/11 came and then Bush and all his wars and this and that, and then the nightmare that is Obama, that now we're back in this malaise again.
Well, I want you to know that in all of these things that you touted about Reagan cutting taxes, Reagan raised taxes in 7 of his 8 years in office.
He had to deal with a Democrat.
Wait a minute.
A Democrat
Chris,
Congress.
Wait a minute.
He did everything he could. Sometimes he had to make a compromise.
Sometimes
pragmatic, because he had to deal with this Tip O'Neill jerk, and that whole idea that Tip O'Neill and Reagan were like best of friends, that was a bunch of crap. Tip O'Neill was a big fat I mean, he and Chris Matthews worked for him, by the way. Tip O'Neill was no friend of Reagan's, and yet Bob McDonald running the Congress, who was a drunk too, just like John Boehner, who didn't even show up for meetings, and yeah, Reagan had to cut some deals. I mean, he had to. Chris. He was a pragmatist in some ways. I mean, you're right.
Chris, wait a minute, though. Okay, he raised taxes in 7 of his 8 years. Try to let me finish here real quick. He tripled the federal deficit. During the Reagan years, he tripled the deficit. Now, the deficit's not anything like the same kinds of numbers that we have now.
Yeah, look at what we've got now. What is this maniac done? These two maniacs, Bush and Obama, both. I mean, they've do you know Obama has added more to the debt than every president combined since George Washington?
Just the cost of money.
And Bush wasn't much better either.
No.
Reagan raised it mainly on defense because we had to deal with the Soviets and them pointing bombs at us from Cuba and everywhere else and Nicaragua and
listen to this.
It's trying to help the Contras against the Sandinistas and you had anti-American communists like our vice president Joe Biden, who Joe Biden is an anti-American communist.
But we're talking about Reagan.
No. This was Joe Biden was a Senate leader back when Reagan was president, and Biden was siding with the Sandinista Liberation Front. Yeah, they were the communist Russian-controlled people, and when when Ortega came back with all that money from the Soviets, waving it around, the Biden and the Democrats ran down there and were like, "Oh, no, don't," and scolded him for it, And he'd come to America and he'd wear those fancy sunglasses and stuff. And they're like, "No, you can't say you're getting money from the Soviets. You're ruining everything." And I mean, you got to understand, our Vice President Joe Biden is an anti-American communist.
No, he's not.
It has been since the 80s.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
Sided with the Sandinista Liberation Front.
Listen, do you know how many people went to prison over all that fucking money down funding the Sandinistas and the Contra rebels? This was crazy. And so that has nothing to do with what happened with Reagan.
Oh, I mean, he tried over and over again to pass resolutions to support the Contras.
Chris, wait. Let me finish. I can't even get two words out, and then you go on a roll on me. I'm just trying to tell you that Reagan's trickle-down economics did not work. When he did this, the famous tax cut that he was famous for, unemployment in the United States jumped to over 10%. Reagan, economically, it was when he did this, the famous tax cut. Anyway.
I can't get this music to stop.
Okay, well, never mind. I get your point, what you're doing with the music and stuff, and I'll quit. Good enough.
Reagan created 30 million new jobs.
Okay, check the unemployment rate after Reagan's tax cut and see if it didn't jump up to almost 11% in the United States. An unheard of rate.
Geez, I'd take 11% over what we've got today.
Well, we're way down below 10 now.
Yeah, sure we are.
Okay. Well, but what I'm trying to tell you is Reagan was a lovable old man.
5% unemployment. Just don't count all those people that gave up.
I get it. Look, Chris, I get it. You're a better expert than I am. I just know facts. And the facts are that Ronald Reagan's trickle-down economics did not work. They worked during his tenure, and then everybody else had to scramble and try to figure out how to fix all of this shit. And it's just a myth. Ronald Reagan was a lovable old man. I thought he was a good president for what was happening. But he created almost 11% unemployment rate. He raised taxes 7 out of his 8 years in office. And those are facts. Those are not, I think that he's associated with this or that. Those are facts. And
oh man,
Chris.
I just have to get out my book.
Yeah, I think I'll throw this in there. He is related on my mother's side.
Really?
Do what?
You're related to Reagan?
Yeah, my mother does genealogy.
Oh, really? Oh, that is so cool. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan was classy, too. You want to know something? He was shot. Within, his first, year of office. And he just came right back from it. And he was so classy. He brought back the white tie and tails. Jimmy Carter was inaugurated in some dingy old suit, but he brought back the white tie and tails, and him and Nancy, they were so just classy and really, I mean, if it wasn't for Reagan, the Soviet Union could be the empire of the world. I mean,
I'll agree with
the Soviet Union, he didn't take any shit from Gorbachev. I mean, he laid it down just the way it was. I mean, boy, I would love another Reagan, but he's dead. So we'll. I mean,
Wait,
Sarah Palin would be a great president. Hold on, Ted Cruz would be a great president. Ted Cruz would be a great president. But the next
year,
the next president is not the point. We could have the best president in the world. We could have Sarah Palin as the next president. It's not going to make a bit of difference. What we need is a convention of states. We need to amend the Constitution.
Chris, let Lester speak. You're dominating the conversation.
All I'm trying to say
so many things to say.
Yeah, but maybe somebody else does too. I was just trying to talk about that Reagan's trickle-down economics, in my opinion, were horrible for us in the long run. Reagan gave amnesty to 3 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. If they came to the United States before 1982, he gave them all amnesty. If Obama, and all you guys, see, I like I said before, I think Obama's terrible. But if Obama gave just a blanket brush to 3 million of them right now, you guys would want his head on a fucking stake. You know, he funneled illegal weapons to Iran. Think about that. I think Ronald Reagan was an okay president. I think he
He didn't funnel those weapons to Iran. That was all a lie. You need to read more. That was all a lie. You know what they said about Reagan? They said that he sent his favorite Bible to a leader of the Iranian parliament, and that he highlighted a special verse in the Bible, and that was a secret message to send aid to the Contras, and that was their evidence.
So
the media was the same then as they are today. They hated Reagan. That whole thing was such a farce, and I can't believe you don't know that.
Okay, let me just say something. Reagan, you think that, I'm not really, if I say this, I'm opening it up for you to talk for another 5 minutes. Reagan, you don't think Reagan funneled weapons to Iran. You think that Ollie North and all of those people involved just did their thing by themselves, I guess. But here's what I do know. I happen to have friends in the banking business in Dallas. And when that Iran-Contra thing was going on, I know of 5 bankers that was involved in that all went to the penitentiary. All diehard Republicans and doing what they thought their president, through Ollie North, wanted done. And they funneled money. You have no idea. But I know for a fact that I was sitting in one of the banks when they came in and took the guy to jail. They arrested him. And you think that this is all I don't know where you get your information. You say you read it in the Reagan diaries. You read his version of what he wanted you to read.
I would have funneled money to the Contras too, to fight the Sandinistas in a heartbeat.
Even if it was illegal.
It wasn't illegal. It was a covert operation. It was a CIA covert operation to fight the communists.
Some of the funds from the illegal arms sales went to fund anti-communist rebels in Nicaragua. I agree.
Good.
Okay, wait a minute. I agree. But it was still illegal. He was a fucking criminal.
So is marijuana, and you still smoke it.
And that's my point, though. That's my point. Ronald Reagan, it's fine to understand. It's fine to think that Ronald Reagan was a great president. I think he was a fine president. I said that all along. Right. But let's don't get caught up in the myth over reality. You know, to say that Joe Biden is a communist. He's not
He is a communist. You don't even know. Do you know his history? Do you know the things that he did? He went over and sided with the Russians. They went over, him and Christopher Dodd Senator Dodd and Joe Biden openly sided with the communists during the Reagan administration. Okay? If you don't know that, you don't know history.
Then let me ask you something. So if I told you that Ronald Reagan helped create the Taliban and Osama bin Laden, what would you say to that?
He had the Northern Alliance and Massoud in the Mujahideen of the Northern Alliance who were enemies of bin Laden and sided with them to fight against the Russians.
Osama bin Laden was trained right here in the United States.
No, he was not. Massoud was a blood enemy, and the Northern Alliance were enemies of the Taliban or of Al Qaeda, and Al Qaeda wasn't even born at that point.
I didn't say Al Qaeda. I said the Taliban. Yeah.
Reagan had Massoud and the Northern Alliance in the White House and helped them train in order to fight the Soviets. Just the fact that bin Laden and them got involved and that jihadist movement got involved with fighting against the Soviets was out of Reagan's control. And besides the fact, Massoud and the Northern Alliance were blood enemies of the radical jihadists.
So you're telling me that Ronald Reagan and you're telling me that Ronald Reagan and his administration didn't fight any type of a proxy war, any type of a training session in conjunction with the Soviet Union. That's what you're telling me.
Soviet Union with Afghanistan. How is he supposed to foresee that these people were going to declare jihad? But what I'm telling you is the people that he had in the White House. Here, I'll show you the picture of him meeting with all the people in the White House.
Look at Chris's vacuum cleaner behind him.
Where is it?
Look at the drawers open on his chest.
Wait, what?
Behind you, your drawers are all open with socks hanging out.
All right, I'm a single guy. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, where is it?
I thought you had to be at work at 6.
What time is it? Hold on a second.
10 till 6.
4:48.
All right. I gotta get out my other Ronald Reagan book. Okay.
Wait a minute. You've got 10 minutes to get to work.
I can come on when I come on. All right.
Yes.
Oh.
This is very important. Okay. Oh yeah. Did I mention that Ronald Reagan was the one that made Martin Luther King Day a national holiday? Okay. Here is
for you to not even. Never mind.
Here is Ronald Reagan meeting with the Northern Alliance. Okay.
I don't have my video on.
All right.
I believe. I'm not saying that did
that is Ronald Reagan meeting with the Northern Alliance.
Okay. So what is that?
And did you know this? Did you know that Massoud, the lion, the great lion of the Northern Alliance, a blood enemy of bin Laden, was killed by a bomb the day before 9/11. Ronald Reagan was not dealing with the Taliban. He was dealing with the Northern Alliance to fight against the Soviet Union from their imperialism and their invasion into Afghanistan. Now I'll give you the last word, and then I've got to go.
Imagine that. Go ahead. Go ahead. Give us your last word.
No, I said I'll give you the last word, then I got to go.
Man, okay. All I'm just going to say is, look, a lot of people are in love with the myth of Ronald Reagan. A lot of conservatives are in love with Ronald Reagan. I get it. You know, a long time ago, when Rush Limbaugh was confronted on his show by a caller by the name of Mike Stark, and Mike Stark went in and started explaining to Rush, or asking him why everybody was in love with this guy who raised taxes.
I'm seeing you knitting.
And Limbaugh flew off the handle to the point that they went to a 45-minute break on his show. He got so irate. But he said, where did you get the idea that Ronald Reagan ever raised taxes? It's that you guys that want to believe that Ronald Reagan was so wonderful and so great, that Ronald Reagan did this and that. I've said all along during our conversation that Ronald Reagan I thought was a good president. But a lot of his policies did not work. He let undocumented workers, he gave them all amnesty, just straight across the board. Didn't matter who they were or where they came from. If anybody did that today, you guys would ask for fucking Obama's head on a platter.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just the way it is. But I'm not trying to destroy your thought of Ronald Reagan. Like I said, he was a good president. Militarily, he kept us strong. But his economics did not work in the United States because in the early 80s, money fell off of trees. If you were any type of an entrepreneur and you couldn't make money in the early 80s, you had no business trying to do that. You might as well go to work for Burger King. But I am telling you, money fell off of trees. I made more money in the early 80s than I've ever made in my entire life if you take into consideration the value of the dollar. It was just great. But don't fool yourself on what Ronald Reagan was. Because some of what you said, okay, I can deal with. And anybody can. You like the guy. I get that. But some of this other stuff is foolish.
Chris, tell him what your email is.
Do what?
Tell him what your email is, Chris.
My email is chrisnelson@reagan.com.
No, he doesn't love Reagan.
Oh, my God. I see why. Okay, and that's all right. You know what? I think you're entitled to believe what you want to believe. I can't do anything about that, and I respect that. Whatever you want to believe. But I know for a fact I lived through the 80s, and that doesn't make me right about everything, but I know what I think. And I'm pretty sure that...
the 80s were very, very good to me.
They were very good to anybody that was
Are
making...
the 80s over?
Man, I was fucking rich in the 80s.
Of course the 80s were good. Reagan was president.
Fuck off, Chris.
I'm Chris Nelson. Thanks for listening.
Nah.
You idiot.
Oh, my God.
I think
What?
he's gone. Oh, man. What a night.
You know
I've been
what,
sitting
though?
here knitting the last 20 minutes.
Huh?
I'm knitting.
Could you hear me screaming in the back?
You're going, Chris!
Oh, my God. You know what? And see,
Ew.
that's a real problem that won't serve him well in radio very long.
Oh, I know. You know, the first lesson I learned was saying 5 what used to take 10.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You don't just... Because what happens is then it just becomes rhetoric.
Yep. He does tend to get long-winded.
But I think he intends to do well, or tries to do well.
I look at people in the instances of their heart. I don't really judge them by what they do because that's just things they do, not who they are. I think in general, Chris is a really good-hearted person.
Oh, I think he's a genuine person.
I do too.
He got excited.
It took a lot for him to apologize to me, and I think it's great.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and I can't think of very many people that...
Apocalypse is still listening to our show.
God.
He didn't even spell the word hi right. He's so tired. I had to restart the show.
Did you really?
I swear to
Jesus
God.
Christ, honey, it is almost 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, who cares? Who's keeping score? This has been fun, guys. Annette, thanks for hanging in there with us.
Sure. No problem. I've enjoyed it.
Well, Annette, I'm glad I got to meet you.
Yeah, she's something
Well,
else.
it's nice to meet you.
She's a mess. She is a mess.
Hey, and I want to apologize to you guys for my big long talk about marijuana, but I'm pretty passionate about this.
Apocalypse says hail meth. Apocalypse said hail meth. Apocalypse.
Yeah, I'm hailing it. No, I'm kidding.
No, the reason I know nobody does any meth is we all stay on webcam all night. I never see anybody doing any meth. I just slept all day today. Now, last night I couldn't have done this. There's no way.
I'm going to pay for this later.
All right, everybody.
No, I'm not on a webcam, am I?
Yes, you are.
You've been on webcam all night.
You have been.
Are you serious?
No.
Yeah, I see you.
I can see you.
I like that T-shirt.
It's not a T-shirt.
She's naked.
Okay, I was just playing with you. You're not on cam.
It's a Victoria's Secret Valentine's bra.
No.
Nice.
Oh, Victoria's Secrets makes some really nice stuff, huh?
Oh,
I
yeah.
do. I have a lot of it.
I have a lot of it, too. Everything I have is Victoria's Secret. Okay.
Hey.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Well, Annette,
My man.
this is the Lester I was telling you about. The one that I think is so cool.
Now, you live in Dallas?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Right. Are you an attorney or?
No. No, I
He just acts like one.
just act like I know what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not an attorney. I just know a lot of attorneys, much to my chagrin.
Yeah, I tell you.
You know what they call 3 attorneys at the bottom of the ocean, right?
Not enough.
A good start?
Start.
Or yeah.
All right. Well, you stupid maniacs. I guess we'll talk to you guys later on. Annette, give us a call, little girl, and that's it, okay?
I have one question. Are you still where I know you're at?
No.
Well,
I still own it, but I'm not there. Does that
Well,
make
I'd
sense?
love to come see you sometime, but
I'll tell you where I'm at when we get off the air, okay?
okay. You've got my number. Call me.
Okay. You sound
Call me.
good. Miss you. Love you. Want you.
I miss you too, and I want you to tell me where you're at after the show. And Lester, it was nice.
I'm going to marry
Yeah,
Lester. I'm going to
talk
marry
with you
Lester.
and see.
I'm going to marry Lester one of these days. He doesn't know it yet.
That's okay.
All right. Goodbye, you crazy people.
All right.
Oh, he's still on the call? I thought he was gone. I thought Lester hung up.
No.
Bye. Good night, everybody. And good night for NBC News.